Thank you so much for joining us today.
Maybe I should unmute my mic. First of all, Happy New Year. I've got my tie on. It's an impression, but anyway. The topic of the Land of Oz today is healthcare is a human right. And I'd like to start off by looking at the definition of what an establishment, what establishment means pertaining to a political party. Now, by Wikipedia's definition, a dominant group or elite that holds power or authority in a nation or an organization. Now, that organization would be Republicans or Democrats, the duopoly. Now, who controls the establishment representatives of this duopoly? I believe a more accurate question may be, who donates bribes? Who bribes? Oh, sorry, did I say that? Our representatives in the House and Senate to procure corporate and special interest friendly legislation. Well, the answer is easy. You all know it. Insurance companies, real estate, lawyers and lobbyists, energy and natural resources, fossil fuels, and agribusiness, the factory farms that have been putting friends of mine out of business for the last couple of decades. Now, I've got 5 representatives here, or 4 candidates, and one incumbent Democrat, who is Susan DelBene. She's an establishment Dem incumbent. She's up in Washington's 1st Congressional. Then I have Dorothy Gasquet. She's a Dem candidate in Washington's 3rd. I have Carolyn Long. She's a Dem candidate, an establishment Dem candidate in Washington's 3rd. I really have to say she's a pro-establishment Dem candidate because she hasn't been elected yet. Then we have one of our favorites, Sarah Smith, progressive candidate in Washington's 9th, and then Tamborine Borelli, who you just heard from. Such passion. Way to go, Tamborine! Yeah, girl! And I took apart, I took quotes from each website from these individuals. Susan DelBene on healthcare. We must do more to make sure all Americans to affordable, quality healthcare. That's why I introduced legislation to extend the small business tax credit to help small businesses cover their workers. Well, that sounds nice, but I want healthcare. I don't want access, and I'm not interested in that. So she doesn't get it, in my opinion. Now we have Carolyn Long. She's the pro-establishment candidate. Her quote on healthcare: all Americans deserve access to affordable healthcare. How nice, affordable, the cost. We need to immediately repair the challenges presented by the Affordable Health Care Act, or excuse me, the Affordable Care Act, not Healthcare, Care Act, particularly as it relates to access to healthcare markets. Now, markets mean money. Once again, it's about the money. So she doesn't get it. Let's look at our next Dorothy Gasquet, I should say. Dorothy is one of my favorites as well on healthcare. Healthcare is a right for all people, regardless of their ability to pay. Nobody should go without proper medical care in such a prosperous country. Medicare for all. Yay, she gets it. Touchdown, Dorothy. Okay, our next candidate, Sarah Smith on healthcare. The United States should catch up to every other modern nation and implement a single-payer Medicare for all system. There's no reason why we can't be number 1 in the world instead of number 37. Medicare for all today, single payer tomorrow. Well said, Sarah Smith. She gets it. And then we have, of course, Tamborine Borelli. You just heard from her. Tamborine on healthcare. The care in healthcare should be the primary focus of medical staff and patients. Hundreds of thousands are driven into bankruptcy due to healthcare costs. I stand solidly in favor of a single payer insurance system, Medicare for all system. Way to go, Tamborine. Now, which one of these candidates do you think would best serve the public? I think you guys get it. We're looking at the progressives. The pro-establishments want to keep the status quo. They've had it for years. The Affordable Care Act, although it's solved a couple of issues, it didn't solve the problem of profiteering off the health and well-being of our nation's people. Not good, folks. Now, to point this out and to understand the magnitude of this issue and how we desperately need universal health care in this country, I want to offer this video segment, this interview from one of my favorite candidates, Amy Vilela in Nevada's 4th Congressional District. Now, if John, if you could cue that up, it's just 3 minutes. And after that's over, I will close this segment out. And I want to thank everybody and wish them another Happy New Year. But please watch closely with Amy Vilela. She's my hero here. I don't think I could have maintained myself through this interview.
Sure, it is very inhumane. And you know, my daughter was 22 years of age. She had just moved to Las Vegas. We just had moved there ourselves, and she decided for some reason she wanted to move out to Vegas. And she was going to school to become an RN, and she had just enrolled in school. She was working 2 jobs as a CNA and was very self-sufficient. When she arrived, she had a red swollen leg. And we thought it's just from driving, you know. I was a CFO, not in any medical field, and I thought, well, you know, give it some time, this should take care of itself. It continuously got worse, and then she fell. I was out of town, and I got a call, could hear her screaming, and they went to the emergency room. And, you know, we do have a law in place called EMTALA that requires them to see you, but they have found ways, because they're profit-driven, to work around that and give what's called wallet biopsies. They almost do their medical exams so as not to find anything. So she presented with a red swollen leg. My daughter was half African American. She had sickle cell trait. She was a casual smoker. She had an injured knee and just driven 22 hours. They were all signs and symptoms of a blood clot. They immediately asked her when she got there, you know, do you have insurance? That's the first phone call I yielded, and I'm like, why are you calling me on this? Like, we'll deal with this later, just be seen. They had my husband calling up TRICARE, which he's in the military, so most people don't know that military personnel and active duty people are not covered the same way civilians are. Our children are not covered between the ages of 21 and 23 unless they are actively enrolled. And as she had just enrolled in school, this is how silly and ridiculous it is, and the semester had not started, she would not qualify to be on that insurance. She went in the back. I got another call. This time she's crying, and she's, Mommy, they're not helping me. And she begged for something for the pain and for some testing to see what was wrong with her leg. They told her specifically, go get insurance and see a specialist. We're not a doctor's office. And my daughter left there thinking that it was just something that she would have to do as soon as she could secure insurance and see a specialist. I had to do what no parent should have to do, and I had to hold her. She died in my arms of a pulmonary embolism. And it was totally unnecessary, and it was totally because as a CFO, I can tell you, I understand completely what goes on behind the scenes. They're doing risk management. They're talking about, patient payer mixes and how much they can afford of what type of, insurance. And just because you have insurance doesn't mean that it's a gold tier insurance, and you could still be susceptible to being discriminated against. And this, Shalene's not a one-off. She's not the first, and unfortunately, she won't be the last until we get people who have some guts and some balls into Congress and into the Senate and stand up for the American people and get profit out of health care.
Wow. Very powerful.
Yeah, for more stories about real people from their real life experiences and tragedies trying to obtain real health care, please go to Whole Washington Healthcare Stories. And I want to thank everybody again. It's been a great show, and I'll try and keep it as tight as I can. So if there's not any questions, I'll just hang out and listen. Thank you again.
Brian, were there any questions?
No questions for Oz, just some mad props and returns of the Happy New Year wishes.
Oh, thank you all for joining in today. It really makes us proud that we have a good audience forming out there. All right.